So once again, welcome, right? So I know we have a wide range of staff here right now. We have from ECCE all the way to secondary school. We also have tutors, individual tutors. So there's a lot to cover, right? Because out there, we have many apps, and I know being thrown into pandemic teaching and having to sift through what is available, what works best for you, what is free, it has been a challenge. But we're going to go through some of those and we wouldn't go through very much in depth into how it will be used now, like for the exact features. We'll have follow-up sessions on exactly how to use some of the more popular ones, especially the free ones. But this is just to give you a taste of what is out there, right? All right, so first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about the organizations that are running this program, right? So you would have all seen it from Intel Online, and it's also in conjunction with MENA Eli Instructional Education Foundation, right? Let me tell you a little bit about both of these organizations. So Intel Online is the internet outreach, the social media outreach, where it started off as support for teachers when the pandemic started, and a team of us were creating pre-prepared slides with content so that for the different levels, right? So the mission was to start with the primary school level all the way to the secondary school level and be able to dispense slides on core topics so that teachers would not always have to be fumbling to get extra resources, because we know it's very costly. And what I noticed was that as soon as the world went online, many of the subscriptions that were previously free became premium packaged, right? So we tried to create a community where teachers could actually access the different slides. What is the MENA Eli Instructional Education Foundation? That is a foundation, and I'm just going to give you a little history on that. Maynard Almagam was my father, actually, and he was a teacher for in excess of 33 years. He eventually became a principal, and his quest was to integrate technology into the classroom, and this is about 15 years ago while he was doing his practicum at the University of the West Indies. Unfortunately, he passed away not too long after, and I was still at school when he was doing this practicum, and I was very much motivated by the vision, and it started this particular drive to support teachers as we transformed away from the paper-based methods and the whiteboard methods into the technology. And I think he had that vision to see that we would eventually have to change. So myself and my team, we have created this concept and bring it to Trinidad, because in TNT, we don't seem to have that support for teachers where they can get resources. And as a teacher myself, there's not much curriculum support for our curriculum. And it's unfortunate because our children are moving towards the SCA exam, and it's not like in the US where there's a transition from elementary to middle to high school. It's inevitable. We actually have this exam. So we really need to prepare our children. So we need some more support in that. What is our mission? Our mission is to provide quality support, working collaboratively with teachers to support leadership and innovation within school culture and the profession of teaching. Our core commitments are providing skill development opportunities, serving as critical partners to educators, and sharing publications, research, funding, training, and other opportunities that promote teacher leadership and development. And focusing on sharing publications, right? We're trying as best as we can to keep our costs at the minimum, right? Which is why we have a free webinar today, right? Because we know how it is. Teachers, we most of our supplies, our auxiliary supplies, they don't come from the school budget. They come out of our own pockets, right? Okay, so why should we integrate technology into our classroom? Now, besides the fact that we are in pandemic learning right now, and as much as we would like to open as soon as possible, I do suspect, and many of you may agree with this, but blended learning may become something that is more prevalent in the years following the strict, fully online virtual learning, right? So when technology is integrated into the classroom, it's seamless and thoughtful. Students not only become more engaged, they begin to take more control over their learning too. Now, this statement, for those of you who have not taught on Zoom yet, this may seem very practical. You may think, yes, this is so true because the kids like the technology, and when they go online, they want to express themselves, and because they're always on these gadgets. Fair enough. For those of us who have been teaching for the last year and a half, this is not 100% true. Actually, pandemic learning has shown to be it has been, I don't want to say sabotaging, but some of our efforts have been sabotaged as the kids themselves have learned the tech. They've learned all the loopholes. They learn how to pretend that they don't have connectivity. They learn to pretend to be in class while they're playing video games on the side. They learned how to not do homework and answer in class. And I think at every level, they've learned how to evade being caught on by teachers. And most of the times we're one teacher in a class full of students, and to manage each little window of students, it's almost impossible, especially if you're using Zoom or any other platform like that, right? So what we're going to talk about today is how we're going to make the classes themselves intrinsically more student-centered so that they should, right? I mean, obviously not all would fall into the pool as in a regular classroom, in a traditional classroom, but at least we can encourage our students to be more motivated to participate in classroom and remain engaged. So a brief history of technology in the classroom, and I thought this was very interesting, the evolution of tablets from the inception. And I was there. I actually looked first for the slates because my parents grew up in a time where you had slates. By the way, my both parents were teachers, so they always spoke about the slate. Writing on the slates, always have to have the slate paper or whatever. And I found it very interesting that they went to school in a time of slates, which pretty much looks like an archaic form of a tablet, right? And on researching a little bit more, I came across this, it's called a paddle, and it's basically like a static tablet. It has all the information you need for the day, and you refer to it even down to the school prayer, in which case would have been the Lord's Prayer. So it's amazing how the more things change, the more they remain the same, right? We're always trying to keep up with the times to engage our kids, and this was one way, having this hard and fast paddle, which really and truly was practically indestructible for kids at the time. They were able to have at least some level of interaction, the resource on hand, right? And then we're going to look at the evolution of technology in the classroom. So technology has been changing over the years. Sorry about that. And I'm sure most of you who would have been in the service for a long time, you remember some of these gadgets. So even those of you who went to school yourselves, you would remember cable in the classroom where we're wheeling in these big television sets into the classroom to show videos, whether it was I think it would be like his channel. Some schools did it, not all. The overhead projector, I think many secondary schools would have done this, especially if we didn't have textbooks on hand. Then we have the infamous computer labs and floppy disks, etc. Right? So we have been adapting over the years. So if you've had any qualms about, okay, how am I going to manage this? It has been done before, albeit at I don't want to say primitive, but at a lower level, right? Not as advanced as it is now. But we always, as teachers, we always adapt, and the children, we always find a way to reach the kids, right? Now, one of the things that I want to touch on before we actually get into the use of the tech is the theory of multiple intelligences. And why should this feature in technology? So I'm certain that most of you, before I continue, most of you would have heard of the theory of multiple intelligences. If you have, can you just use the chat and raise your hand, use the hand raising icon? So if you're not familiar with using the hand raising icon, what you can do, for some of you, it may be on the bar itself, there's a button that says reaction. If you click on it, you would see a number of reactions that will come up at the bottom of the screen, right? And this is also an excellent tool to use in your classroom if you do actually have Zoom. I know some teachers, I spoke to some the other day, and they had no idea that they had the reactions there. They saw that the kids were playing around with it, right? But it's a nice way to get them to volunteer, right? So I'm seeing almost everyone has raised their hands. Excellent. Right. So most people would have already heard about multiple intelligences. And where does this fit in the technology in the classroom? Simple. The technology today reaches more intelligences than the traditional paper and pencil blackboard learning and writing. I'm not saying that it's better, right? Or worse or anything like that, but there are more avenues in which we can capture the different intelligences. And I think when we transitioned to pandemic learning, I think because it was so swift, it literally was today for tomorrow, we tried to capture the classroom and put it on a screen. For many of us, we didn't really integrate the tech into the classroom. So for students who, let's say, were bodily kinesthetic or were more, let's say, intrapersonal, right? We may have lost these two categories in particular, because in the physical classroom, the kids can move around and they can interact with each other. They have breaks and they can explore and they can go into the library and all of these things. And while the intrapersonal students, they were able to sit down with their books and read for themselves, and you saw that they were participating. We did not need to prod them to find out, hey, are you paying attention? We knew they were participating. But these particular categories of children are at a huge disadvantage with the online learning, because the bodily kinesthetic students, they have to sit in front of a computer for several hours for the day. And that is very frustrating. They may begin the day very, very hyperactive. They're willing to learn, but somewhere around, if you begin around 9 o'clock or maybe half 8, around 11 o'clock, they're getting restless. And by the time they have lunch and they come back in, they're probably signed off for the day. And that is happening to a lot of kids out there. Quick check. Have you all noticed that with your kids, they're coming in with energy, especially those who are the performers, they come in with energy, but they slump by mid-morning. And it has been getting increasingly worse as we've been carrying on with the pandemic learning. And has anyone recognized that behavioral change?
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Yes, it's happening. And the intrapersonal, right? Those who are strong on the intrapersonal side, they have not been engaging in class as much. You think that they possibly would have checked out. And many times you may think, oh, they're not paying attention, right? And sometimes, because, we have to deal with all these different personalities, they may inevitably get a little roughed up because, they're not really participating. We're asking them and we think they're checked out. And it's only when they submit their work we realize, they've been paying attention. So that's also another issue we're dealing with. All right, so I'm only going to look at 3 of the major learning styles and what apps work for these, what apps that we can use right now that works best with them. So we have a visual and spatial learning, right? Visual and spatial learning. These students.
Private, it's public.
Sorry.
May I access that?
Oh, sorry. I think somebody was trying to get my attention. All right. Yeah. So visual learning students learn best by reading directions or seeing a demonstration. They often need to see concepts and facts through pictures, diagrams, and charts, right? Now, this is where your best friend PowerPoint comes in, right? How many of you by chance have been using PowerPoint to put your information for class up on the screen visually? Now, this is an excellent tool. PowerPoint is an excellent tool for this, right? Because there are many benefits of using PowerPoint. Not only can you put your information there for easy access, right? Obviously, you don't need to write anything on the screen, or you don't need to use textbooks, etc. You can also embed videos and links directly into the PowerPoint. And what I usually do,
Melanie, you can come a minute, please.
I use this in tandem with Google Classroom, where I upload the link directly, the PowerPoint, sorry, directly into,
Melanie.
sorry, yes, upload the PowerPoint directly up onto Google Classroom so that when the parents come home on evenings, they can reinforce what was done for the day, right? By checking the PowerPoint, because all my notes are on PowerPoint. Now, it could be a little tedious. I'm not going to say no, because you have to put your information on your PowerPoint, right? But the good thing is that once you start doing it, it becomes progressively easier to manage because you now have a lot of copying and pasting. If you have revision exercises, you don't need to retype everything. And most of the times, a lot of our notes may not necessarily be coming from a textbook. Sometimes we already use resources from the internet when we need notes. So it actually makes it a lot easier for us to compile notes. We do our research and we copy and paste and we change the fonts and the style. We have a good time designing these slides, right? And it engages the children. The use of bold colors, the type that is being used, right? It keeps the children engaged, right? Rather than them just looking at the built-in whiteboard, right? So I'm going to pause this particular PowerPoint for a second because I wanted to share with you guys a PowerPoint that I did with my students at the end of the second term. Right, it was one of those days where it was just before school would have closed, and what I ended up doing is that I'm trying to end the show. Yeah, what I ended up doing is I created a PowerPoint with dances around the world with the intention of teaching them geography while I was at it. Right, children have a weird way of thinking. They associate. They remember things that they enjoy a lot faster than things that they have to learn, obviously. So let me just open this up for you guys to see. Right. So cultures of the world. So it was a way of introducing them to different cultures around the world, right? Through dance, right? Now, I teach a co-ed school, and it was amazing. Everyone was pretty much engrossed, right? And we went through every as much as I could have thought of at the time, basing a lot of it on our social studies. So for instance, we did, the Columbus discovering Trinidad, and there was a time we got into a conversation about the native tribes in the Americas, who he would have met, right? So at the end of this term now, I'm introducing, the Aztecs were some people, they weren't only the Caribs and the Arawaks, and they had traditional dances. Now, you can put a link from YouTube, but I downloaded the video from YouTube straight. There's YouTube downloader online where you can download videos directly off of YouTube. And for your personal use, of course, obviously not for commercial use, and you can embed it directly into your PowerPoint. So I have many videos in here. So we went to Botswana, and for each country that we spoke about, right, sorry. So for every country that we spoke about, right, we spoke a little about their culture. We spoke about, these were the people that came to the Caribbean, they were enslaved, and this was their culture before. And you would be surprised how engrossed these kids can become, and the insight. And a lot of them have a lot of information as well because they are using the tech. So we have a sense of sharing with the students themselves, right? So just to give you an idea, different dances, Chinese dance. We spoke about double 10 and the Chinese dragon. So basically what happened is that I spent the term with them, and all the different things of interest that came up in class, all the different countries, all the different concepts. We use our best friend YouTube and PowerPoint, and I was able to create these slides for them, right? And also introducing them to new things. No one in class knew about the whirling dervish, you know, and I think a lot of adults don't know it as well. But we were able to capture various cultures, right? So this was actually one of the best interactions at the beginning of pandemic learning with the kids, because they were very much engrossed, and they now took the initiative to go looking up the various cultures and information about the countries. And at the end, we went on Google and we looked up a map of the world, and testing their memory now. So what did you remember? What countries did we visit today, right? And they were able to put pinpoints on the map where we went to, which countries we interacted, which countries we looked at, what dance styles, etc. Right? So PowerPoint and YouTube together, we can create some really fascinating PowerPoints for the kids, right? Also, if anyone has been thinking about my backgrounds that I use, many of them are stock photos, right? So in your resource manual, which would be emailed to you, you would receive a list of all the sites that we're going to cover, all the apps, as well as the addresses, the IP addresses, sorry, of the different resources that I use to help you with your creation of your PowerPoint. So for instance, some of you may never have seen this kind of chalkboard font, for instance, right? I don't know if you all are aware of, there's a site called 1001 Fonts, where you have different types of fonts, right? And it really does add something to your lesson, right? Auditory learning, right? Auditory learning students comprehend and remember information through listening and speaking, right? Presentations, public speaking assignments can accommodate this, right? As well as the technology. So I have two additional icons here. One is Skype, which I know most of us know already, as well as Discord. Now, Discord may be something that many of us may not be aware of, but the kids definitely know, because it's a gaming site. But it's similar to Zoom, because you can actually stream each other, but you can also play games. And how is the use of Discord is going to be seen a little clearer when we actually look at some of the resources that I'm going to go through, right? Now, for secondary school students, there is a site where you have language buddies, where you can actually speak to native speakers of, let's say, French and Spanish, and they can get that oral practice in. One of the issues that a lot of students had, especially with their orals, is that they did not have practice buddies, people to listen and practice with. So again, I will add that in your resource compendium so that you can pass this information on. All right. So the next one we're going to look at is, kinesthetic learning, right? And this was the one I highlighted at the beginning. The kinesthetic learning, these kids, they need to move around, but we can't do anything about that right now. We cannot take them outside to play or anything like that. And because of the successive lockdowns, most of them have been left inside. So the next best thing would be the use of games. Now, we already have a problem in the classroom where children are checking out to probably play video games, but we can channel that into educational video games. And now there are those that come off very much like, okay, well, we're going to learn from this. This is a math game. So they know that they're in for calculating equations, etc. But, and I know most of you by now, if you didn't know about it before, you probably would have heard the kids talk about it. Minecraft has actually come up with an education edition. Now, I myself have never played Minecraft on my own, right? But I've heard a lot about it. I know about the original Minecraft where you can build entire worlds, and Minecraft Education Edition, you actually can create a virtual class and you can create quests, right? So for those of you who may be a little new in the system, and you would have been, you would have played this because Minecraft has been around for a good 15 years now. So, right? You should check this out, right? And there's a free version for teachers to use. You can actually create your own classroom. Now, it's not something that I would recommend that you rely on as much as we like the technology. At the end of the day, we still have the paper-based SCA exam, but it's a good tool to use to break up your day, especially those more monotonous times, right? Where the kids kind of pop down a bit, all right? The clue finders. Personally, I love the clue finders for two reasons. One, it has most of the topics. It has all of the grammar and the language arts, and the reading, but it's pretty aged, right? It's from 2000. So the graphics are okay, right? It's pretty good. Maybe not as good as what the kids today are accustomed with, but it's pretty good. And because it's kind of aged, you can get it for free online, right? They're basically giving this away now, but it's excellent. And they manage the challenges by quest. So for instance, I actually played it when I was testing it out, and they created like a story like plot where you had to beat levels to free a dragon and an evil princess, a dragon from an evil princess or something to that matter, along those lines. And the quests were you needed to seek little gems. So each level you had to pay with a gem in order to progress to the next level. But in order to get those gems, they call them gems, you had to identify correct synonyms. You had to identify the correct spelling of words. A lot of vocabulary building in there. And you could only progress if you had a certain number of gems. So the kids had to earn the gems before actually playing the game, which was a game in itself. And then when they progressed onto the game, one of the challenges, I should say, some of it was solving idioms, identifying parts of speech, vocabulary. This one in particular that I looked at was the reading adventures. So it covered everything in the English language arts syllabus up until, I think that was the grade 6 version. So it did cover everything that you should expect with up until SCA. So it was really, really very good and interactive. Obviously, it's a single player game, right? But so it kind of catches those children who are a little more interpersonal. You know, they could play these levels at their own whim, right? Right. So those are the three main ones, right? But there's always going to be a bit of overlap, intelligence overlap, right? So you have your logical mathematical learning, you have your naturalistic learning, your verbal linguistic, interpersonal, musical learning, and existential learning, right? Now, all these different types of learning, students, we don't have one or the other. Most of the time we have more than one. We may have 2 or 3, right? The term multiple intelligences initially came to describe students who showed the competence in all or almost all of the areas. But especially in this era, we're finding more and more students because they have access to more information that they're doing extracurricular activities. They're actually developing all of these intelligences simultaneously. You may be questioning, why do I have all these stars next to existential learning? And there's a simple explanation for that. Existential learning tends to lean towards those children who are some of the brightest in the class. They're very, very innovative. They have a lot of insights, but for some reason, they check out. They have all the potential in the world, but they check out, or they're very careless, but they ask why, they ask probing questions. And it's not easy. It's not as simple to just give them the information and they learn. They need to know why. And because they don't have all the information, they have not learned everything. you cannot just teach them a formula. Most of the time, you have to give them additional information. Now, the problem with this type of learning, as wonderful as it is, because once it's harnessed, this child does wonderful things. If it's not harnessed, it ends up, you're gonna get a scatterbrain situation going on where their focus is lost because they may be working on one subject and then it may trigger a thought process in another area and they end up running across there and thinking about that and they leave the other one behind. And most of the times, children who display existential learning have a myriad of the others, most of the times, right? So to harness that with the tech is very difficult, worse within the actual classroom itself, right? So these are some of the getting down to the nitty-gritty of the technology that we use in classroom. These are the main ones that are being used right now, right? Most of them, they have either free trials or they are institution packages, right? Where your school would pay for X amount of teachers to use to have their own account. Well, not their own account, but they're licensed to use it. They're authorized to use it. And you go on and you have a sign up link like everyone else, right? So Zoom, as we're on now, Google Classroom, Schoology, Canvas, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams, Discord, not so much. Easy Class is a new one. I've been trying that one out. It's actually a lot better than Google Classroom, to be perfectly honest, because the grading scheme is a lot more, it's easily managed, right? Google Classroom, there's a lot of inputting information manually. Easy Class, you don't have that. It's pre-programmed, but it's pretty new on the market, right? And Skype for most of your.
Excuse me,
Yes?
Sister.
Sure.
I just wanted to find out, for Canvas, your school has to be registered for Canvas. It's
Yes.
not
Yeah, your
it's
school
not
has
an
to be.
individual.
Yeah. So most of these actually have fees attached to it and it will go to the institution. If you, now Canvas may actually have an individual account, right? But it may be a personal license or trial. And the trial might just be about 14 days if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I will double check that for you. But I know Canvas is used by a lot of online universities, a lot of them. Schoology, I'm not so sure how many of you, if anyone uses Schoology. I know CUC, not CUC, well, yeah, CUC secondary, they use Schoology, if I'm not mistaken. Even before pandemic, they used it as a part of their blended learning, right? Is anyone familiar with any of these by chance?
Yes.
Which one of them?
Yes.
The
Yes.
Canvas,
Canvas, yeah.
Zoom.
and of course Skype, Zoom, Google
Yes.
Class.
Excellent.
Google
Right.
Classroom.
Yes, I am.
And
So-
yes, CUC uses
Teams.
Schoology.
Yes. So let me ask you a question. How do y'all, for those of you who use Google Classroom, I personally would like to know what is your feedback on Google Classroom? I know everyone is using it because it's pretty much it's user friendly-ish, but there are certain drawbacks to it, not so when it comes to like receiving assignments and so on. Is anyone else having that issue?
I think it has to do with running out. Sometimes you run out of space. It can't hold and work for an entire classroom for
Yeah.
the year without run out of space.
Yeah, that is
You
true.
have to buy additional space.
Yes.
Another thing, another setback I feel it has is the attendance. It doesn't have a built-in attendance. You have to create a question
Yes.
to
That
get the
is true.
attendance done.
Yes, that is true. So there are actually some other apps that fixes that situation. We'll come to that now, right? Excellent. And I don't think Google Meets. I know some schools use it, but I find it very glitchy. But and I know some persons having individual classes use Discord because it's free, right? And you can post a good few people on it, right? So Discord seems to be, even though it's a gaming platform, it has been growing amongst a lot of teachers, right? So it's something that you can look at if you're having problems with Zoom. If your school uses it, obviously, you need to go along with the school protocol, but you can always, throw it out there, because I know more and more schools have been using Discord for the same problem, because Zoom drops a lot. It uses a lot of RAM. And if I don't know if you all have been having the internet problems that I've been having during key times of the day when everyone is online. I'm continuously bumped off. I know the Wi-Fi in Trinidad, whether you use Flow or Digicel or whoever, sometimes I know in some areas it's stronger than others, but once your signal is not optimal, it drops completely. And you don't have that problem with Discord. I don't know if it's because of the server itself may be more powerful than Zoom at this point, but I know Zoom has been doing upgrades because of the need to be online, right? So the first thing that we need to keep in mind is to take time teaching the kids how to use the technology. Now, this may seem counterintuitive because kids are always on tablets, right? Not necessarily. What I've noticed is that some children, they may be using the technology a lot. However, some of them don't even turn it on themselves, right? And while you have children who have that problem, on the opposite side, you have children who are complete whizzes at it, right? So at the beginning of the school term, it is advised that we take a few minutes and go through the apps. So just as how perhaps at the beginning of this session, it may have been prudent to go through Zoom itself, right? Because I came into the class assuming that we all would have been using Zoom, right? But this was an incorrect assumption of mine, because I know many people may have had challenges with it, especially if you're using a new device, right? So at the beginning of the term, this was an object lesson for me as well. If we start our semester, our term, introducing the kids how to use Zoom and how to use Google Classroom. And one is for ease of access. Two is for lack of excuses. Excuses is a huge part of pandemic learning. The kids know how to say, Miss, I didn't receive this. I never saw this. Miss, my homework reached midnight and I never saw it. No, cover all your bases. I even had to go down to go down to the level of teaching them, but you need to refresh the page, because if you're on Google Classroom and that tab is up, it probably isn't going to update for itself, right? Now, this is not true, but when children coming up with these stories, sometimes you just have to meet them halfway in these situations. So you just tell them, hey, you need to refresh your page and you'll get your homework. I mean, we already know that they done the homework, right? But at least you're putting it out there so that nobody else is going to use this excuse in the future. Because if you let one pass, they're all going to use it. And you neither, as teachers sometimes, if you don't ever, a teacher friend of mine once just a little, I know my connection just dropped a little bit. That's why my camera had to come off for a bit. Because the kids were like, this is an actual bona fide reason for me to not be on camera right now. So I can say that because if it happens to me, it can happen to me too. Don't open that door at all. If you need to excuse yourself, right? But never, if you don't want to leave any doors open at all for them, because the kids are going to catch on, right? So these are the top used ones right now. I think most of you guys have been using streaming YouTube, right? Getting videos, especially in the primary school, like math antics. How many of you use math antics to help with some more complicated concepts? I know I used it when I was trying to teach long division, because some kids just, they couldn't follow the working all that well, especially if they missed something earlier. And the graphics and the laughter and, all the things that the guy does. I can't remember his name right now, but math antics really, really did help. There's, in terms of English, though, what I've noticed is a lot of the English language subjects are the teaching English as a second language programs, a lot of them. So you may hear some strange accents in there. You may get some Russian, some Indian accents in there. You may get some, never any Caribbean actually, but mostly Eastern Europe and Asia, you will get some accents. So you need to go through these sites that you subscribe to, because you don't want a cross, because sometimes just the accents alone would distract the kids, right? Microsoft Word, for those who have students sending in assignments, obviously you can have them create their Word. I should have put the PDF here as well, because you can create your PDF from your Word and your Excel for your marks, right? How many of you are proficient in Microsoft Excel? And when I mean proficient, I don't mean just putting in the information. I mean in terms of using the formulae to calculate the grades and so on. I know some schools have pre-prepared Excel sheets, right? But I know some of us may still be calculating and so on, right? So now is the time. There are many classes online. There's I'll put it in the resource as well. There are lots of free teaching courses online that deals with everything from Excel down, right? And you can get it for absolutely free. Not Coursera or edX or FutureLearn. Those usually have a fee associated with it. I think you can actually, on Coursera, you can do the courses, you can audit it. You wouldn't get a certificate, but you can at least do the course. So that's, if you don't really want to get a certificate, that's fine. But you can learn the basics and it makes your marking a lot easier. So you just need to put in the raw score and well, you would have had the total in the sheets already and everything would be ranked from there on, right? So it makes it a lot easier for you to prepare. All right, so these two, Kahoot and Socrative, right? They are two of the more popular websites when it comes to children engagement, right? I'm not, however, going to go through these two. And there's a reason for that. Number one, it comes with a subscription, right? Subscription fee. You do have a free trial, but the free trial does not give you a lot to play with, right? It's like a very limited testing, right? Socrative is a little better, but in both cases, if you do, I would advise that if you're in an administrative position, these are two programs that if you would like to invest in for your school, this is all your private training. These are two excellent programs, right? Because you can personalize, you can customize, sorry, these programs to directly reflect your curriculum, right? So if, for instance, if it is you have like math questions, you can put it in there and you get, students, you can make it multiple choice, you can give them short answer, click to answer, you know, the drop down boxes, right? And yeah, it's really excellent. Kahoot, sorry.
Can you call Alan? He's called me, but cannot answer.
Oh, sorry, I think somebody needs to be muted. Okay, no. Right. Let me just see.
Yes, a normal phone.
Right. Kahoot is really nice as an introductory. But personally, there's a lot of to do around Kahoot, but I think it's for teachers who are new to the technology, it could be a little confusing, right? So I'm going to bypass these two for now, but in successive webinars that we will have, we would go through these two in particular because they're very powerful tools to use in the classroom, right? But I'm going to touch on Mentimeter for a moment, right? This is a free, there is a licensed version, but the free one is pretty good as well, right? So Mentimeter is excellent to start your day off or for discussion, right? So you have like a poll and you ask questions and you have kids typing in their responses, right? So instead of calling out individual students, okay, you can answer, you can answer, you can answer, you ask them to type their answer. So for instance, enter 3 separate words that come to your mind when you think of online learning, right? And these are the responses that you're going to get, right? Now, the larger the response, right, the more students would have input that particular answer, right? And conversely, the smaller the font, the less, right? So it encourages participation because it's not going to single out any child if they don't know, right? So this, I like to use this specifically for revision questions, because and for those topics that you know the kids probably didn't grasp too well, right? It gives them that sense of anonymity, but they would not feel as though they need to withdraw and wait for somebody else to answer, right? So it's not going to pinpoint who said what, right? So you get a lot more engagement in the classroom, right? So even if it's wrong, it's just going to appear small, right? So they're not going to feel anyhow, but the correct answers, right? Because most of the times, most of the kids will get it correct anyway, right? It should come up larger, right? And it builds the confidence, and especially those who need a little encouragement out of their shell, those who like to take a backseat, those introverted ones more, it kind of helps them to come out a little bit, right? So Mentimeter, right? I'll add it to it has been added to your compendium already, right? So this is excellent. Any ideas from you guys? What you think you could probably use this for, right? So I know you may be thinking about it. How can I probably implement this in class, right? You could use as simple as, okay, how are we doing this morning to start your class off? Because we have shy ones. Any other ideas anyone would like to share?
Answer garden is an option as well.
Answer garden, yeah. And what are some ways we can use it? Any suggestions how we can use it in class?
I think you can also use it for like HFLE, but instead of the words, if you're doing a younger class, like a first year, you could probably use like smiley faces.
Yeah.
They click on a smiley face, or they add a smiley face to the answer at the top there.
Yes.
You
Excellent.
can use it for brainstorming as well. Let's say you have a particular topic. You're probably talking about weather, what the children know about the word weather. It could be any word, but what it is they know about it, you get their feedback through that as well.
Excellent.
Or if you're talking about nouns, they could be jumping out, sharing nouns, and you build as well, whatever it is.
That is a good point. Actually, I use this once for a composition, actually. The word nice and bad, we're just nice, bad, and good. We're just being used repetitively. And we did 3 polls. Okay, so let's get some other words that we can use. And we got, lots of synonyms, and we can also, use it for vocabulary as well. What are some antonyms of this word? Or, obviously when we get so many of the words you may get at any given point in time for these particular exercises, but we can use these in many, many ways. And you can also use numbers as well. So if you have a math question, right, you can ask them to type in the answer. That can work as well, right? So it's not just for words and for English language. You can use it across the syllabus, right? Okay, before I continue with the different apps we can use, I just want to pause for a minute and talk about internet safety and cyberbullying before we run out of time. And that is because this is a huge thing that we need to deal with, because we didn't have a problem with this in Trinidad as such, in terms of the cyberbullying. Maybe the internet safety sort of, but as more and more students are coming online, unfortunately, we're going to have an influx of predators coming online as well. And this is, I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to be Trinidad based, right? It's the World Wide Web, right? So we have people from all over the world coming on. And a lot of kids are being left unsupervised online because, well, they have their schoolwork to do. So many parents will just give them the laptop and they could do whatever, right? But children can look very busy doing things that they're not supposed to do, right? So I could probably share this infographic with you guys as well. But these are smart rules in terms of internet safety. Stay safe, right? Don't give out your personal information to people and places you don't know. I had situations where students would befriend people on apps like TikTok, right? And they will add each other on WhatsApp. They've never met this person before. This person is claiming to be, however old, 10, 11 or whatever. And they're thinking, oh yeah, this person is really cool. And then they start introducing inappropriate information to the kids. And this is a real situation, right? It did not really reach Trinidad before, but we can learn from the United States and other countries where they have the blended learning already instituted. And this is a huge problem, and we have to look out for it. And not just those from abroad, right? We also have, I think there was circulating sometime last term, a teacher was online and somebody entered her class and said something very inappropriate. And she had to, it was, I mean, for them it was a joke. I think it was a secondary school student. I think he probably logged into a younger relative's class or something and yelled something very inappropriate, and she had to immediately block him, right? And it went viral. And some people thought it was funny to do this. So, you know, you have your copycats out there who, you know, they're looking to get views, because this person, it wasn't the teacher who recorded it. It was the person who did it. He recorded what he did and shared it, right? So we have people up here who not too right in their head when it comes to I mean, I want to say netiquette, but I mean general. You know, how can you do that with a classroom of impressionable students, right? So, right. So that's one thing. Don't meet up. I don't think we have a problem with that, because for the most part, the kids have to stay in, but don't give out your address. So conversely, if, you know, don't meet up with anyone, don't let anyone meet you, right? And you may think, you know, the parents should be speaking to their kids about these things, and that is true, right? But better safe than sorry. You know, have this conversation at the beginning of your school term, right? To stave off any issues. Accepting files, right? File sharing could be a problem, as more of us are going online and we have our credit card information online. We don't know what the kids, if you're sharing a device, for instance, again, this may not necessarily apply directly to you as teachers, but again, to pass on the information to the parents, right? Educate the children about accepting files from sources that they don't know. Not only can it crash their own system, it can also encourage people to get personal information from the family device, right? Reliability, right? So prior to pandemic learning, well, we use the internet, yes, before. However, now that we're on it full time, we need to teach our children about real information, real reliable sources, as well as fake news, right? Because the children, obviously, they just think that, oh, well, once I get it in Google, you know, it's acceptable, right? We need to teach due diligence at a very early age, right? I think most of us would have probably learned how to check sources, to cite sources properly in university, right? But now we need to teach 7 and 8-year-olds, you know, don't just take what's on the internet as gospel, right? Tell someone. If an adult or someone or something makes you feel worried or uncomfortable, tell someone. And this goes because the kids are online and they are getting very accustomed being on camera, right? Now, I don't need to go into specifics. I think we all know what can happen on Skype, on Zoom, on WhatsApp video, right? These things are happening, right? And a lot of young children are being exploited, right, by some very unscrupulous people, right? And they are grooming our kids. They are grooming them. They are telling them things. They're sending them little inappropriate things, and, you know, laughing, you know, to make them feel comfortable with them, right? And then it's going to be, the situation is exacerbated, right? And we all know what happens, right? So please, at the beginning of the term, let's just sensitize the kids about this. Now I'm going to move ahead. These are some very popular sites that you should communicate to your parents, right? So if you're using Google Classroom, usually at the beginning of the year, I write a little, well, at the beginning of the third term, when we started back after schools went up in March, and then at the beginning of the academic year, and I think at the beginning of every term, actually, just a little write-up, you know, internet bullying is real, you know, check out these sites, right? You could add some other things as well to monitor your children online, as well as like your antiviruses and so forth. And everything doesn't have to be very very scary. You can also add on your free kids typing tutorials online, which will also be included in your manual, right? So Kid Search is a very popular one. Most of these have trials or they have limited protection. You can get the entire thing for a cost, right? But it's not really necessary, right? Because they're pretty powerful. Wondershare, Family Safe, Net Nanny, and Kidiji, right? Kidiji has become a little more popular, especially with the younger ones. But for your older students, if you want to put that on them, Wondershare, Family Safe, it's not, you don't want to put a kid search you want for an adolescent or teenager, right? Wondershare, Family Safe, it protects across the board. It helps you with your firewall and, make sure that, your own personal information is secured as well, right?
Dojo as well.
Yes, yeah, right? So these are things that you want to also share with your parents, right? Okay. So I'm gonna just run through quickly some more of the apps, right? Nearpod, right? It's similar to Soccerself, right? Where you can actually create your own worksheets, right? So you have open-ended questions with your short or long answer. You have your matching, right? You also have it's free, right? But you have obviously a commercial version, but you can actually you can sign up for this for free. Quiz, Flipgrid, Draw It, Collaborate Board. You can take in polls, fill in the blanks, memory tests with simulated flashcards, right? This is an excellent program for you guys to use. I would really advise you to take a look at this, right, when you're planning some of your revision. So I know, first of all, I know it may be a little overwhelming because there are so many different apps that do so many different things. My advice to you, choose one or two that you think will cover all of your needs, and then you could run with that instead, right? But if you try to use all of these at the same time, you're going to get overwhelmed because it still requires a lot of planning, right? This saying, teaching is the job where you have to work before you work and work after you work, right? It's a continuous cycle of planning and preparation. Miss Lisa, I think you have a question. I see your hand raised, or is that from before?
What was the name of the site that you just mentioned?
This one here, Nearpod.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Don't worry, guys. You're going to get all of this information emailed directly to you, right? All right. So let's see. Right. Class Dojo. This is amazing for classroom management. It's amazing for classroom management.
I used it. It's really nice.
Wonderful. I'm so glad, right? I did not find out about this until July, but this is really, 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 really nice. What it does, it creates like avatars for all your kids, and you can assign points to the children based on things like performance or behavior or anything like that, right? And they can use these points, so you can kind of create a classroom economy in a sense. So they use the points to earn certain privileges within your classroom. So for instance, I don't know, who wants to, in my class, I know I usually have a rush for who wants to say the prayer, or, who wants to share screen, or who, things like that, right? And it keeps them wanting to earn privileges, right? So you don't have to be like, obviously, yes, you have some reprimanding here and there, but obviously, the kids, they're so motivated to get these points to do these different things, right? So at the beginning of your term, you can actually set out a list of classroom rules and assign points to them. A point for submitting homework, or you have bonus points for helping others in class. So behaviors that you want to reinforce within the classroom, you can also assign points to that as well, right? And always keep some like hidden ones, right? So they wouldn't see these coming, so they would not just be behaving in a way because they're out to get these particular points, but it will encourage a generalized improvement in their behavior and their receptivity to the classroom itself, right? So this is excellent, right? Class Dojo is really, really nice. It's for younger students, so it's more like the elementary school level. But I would not be surprised if even Form 1s may actually like it, Form 1s and Form 2s, if you make it into a game enough, you know.
Well,
But
well,
definitely-
we used it for the Form 2s. That's who we used it with.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it really motivates them. And it was well received. Yeah.
Yes, it was very much so.
Right. You know what, once you get that collaboration going, that you know, that drive going, it really keeps them engaged, right? And it really is helpful. Ed puzzle, right? Ed puzzle, you can add a lot of content to it, right? Again, for
Yep.
your revision, a lot of content. You can even do drawings in there and you can upload it, or yeah, if you have your digital pens and so on, I will show you some hardware at the end of the presentation, which actually helps a lot in your classroom, because yes, we have apps, but also we still have our textbooks. So I'll show you guys what you can actually use for that as well. Class craft, right? I tried this with a student before, a personal student of mine. I didn't try it during school term, but class craft mimics a video game, right? Where each student, they can create their own avatar, right? And gaming is across all ages. So you could use this from primary school all the way to secondary school. It will be well received. They will, because I think across the board, everyone is, you know, playing Nintendo this and Switch that and whatever, whatever have you, right? So you can create your avatar and you have points assigned to your performance. So children are tracking their performance via this particular icon. And then there's, you know, once you get involved in it, obviously, and you're showing how, you know, well, this particular avatar is at the top of the class and this one is coming up and improvement is being seen by this avatar, whatever. It helps the children get involved in the classroom and it encourages them to stay motivated, right? So what were you saying? Sorry?
Is this shared with one link, or the student would have to have an individual link to join on to this?
Right. So you have, every student will have their own account, but you will have to join them to your specific class. So it will be, so you can merge them into teams. Yeah. So everyone can actually see. It's a really nice tool. Yeah. So what essentially we're doing is, okay, we have to fight with the games at home. So let's bring the games to the classroom. Now, I know some of us may not be too happy with that, because ideally we want to encourage the intrinsic learning. But I try to think of these tools as a bridge, right, between where we are at right now and where we want to be. So some of these tools would not go on indefinitely, right? We would not use it from now until whenever. At some point, the kids are going to fall off for themselves, right? But what would remain with them is the drive to continue, especially when it comes down to exams. So closer to your exam date, you want to kind of ease off, especially these more game type tools, because you want to focus on the material itself. And because you would have been building their confidence during the term using these tools, by the time the closer the latter part of the term begins, they would already realize that, hey, you know, I'm pretty proficient in this. And those who may have been struggling before did not have that self-confidence, thinking that, you know, they may have had test anxiety and, you know, all these things, they will realize that they have a much stronger grasp on the content this particular term, right? And well, we spoke about Minecraft Education Edition, and I found it very, very interesting. Some Minecrafters from back in the day have become very, very innovative, creating their own periodic table of elements in a chemistry part of Minecraft, or doing math, fractions, grammar, have different worlds inside of Minecraft. So they created classrooms, virtual classrooms within Minecraft, right? Now I know this is a little more tedious, right? And like an entire workshop would have to be dedicated just to moving around this particular app. But based on, I mean, we will throw it out there. I know it may be a little difficult to get into right now, seeing that the term is almost there, but we'll still throw it out there and see, you know, the response to it, right? But it's pretty good because Minecraft is very popular. It regained popularity recently. All right, so hardware, digital writing pad. So it's not always you want to type on on Zoom, sorry, on the whiteboard. Sometimes when, especially when it comes to math, you really want to just use the option to write. But just like Paint is, Microsoft Paint, is very difficult to write with your mouse. So I always advise there's a piece of hardware that you can use, right? It's a digital writing pad. It's pretty inexpensive. You can probably get it online for like about 20 US or so. And it's very, very cheap to clear. And it comes with a pen, right? I'll actually include a link on Amazon for some of you guys. I have not seen it locally as yet, right? But it's really excellent. It's USB connected. And it helps you to write seamlessly, right? And you can correct on screen. I use it sometimes if students have to pull up some work that they did, I can correct it right there. You know, it kind of gives it that that human feel when you can actually write and interact with the kids a little clearer. And this one in particular works really, really well. So I write very smoothly. This is Huion, Huion, but there are some higher end ones as well. This is specifically for graphics, right? But not just like for editing like an Adobe and so forth, right? But there are those where a screen will come up and you can actually see what you're writing, and that one is way more sensitive to this one. Obviously, it's a lot more pricey, but if, for instance, let's say you have your art teachers out there, for those of you who have to teach art in secondary school, or even if you want to do art in primary school, this works pretty well in terms of showing technique and so on, but you may want to get the higher end ones to do your different drawing techniques online, as well as, you know, the kids can actually get it for themselves for graphic design, right? The next one, the projector on screen, document projector for laptops. That one is also excellent. I am hoping to get one of those very soon. It's not too bad. Some of them are very expensive. They're like 109 US. The cheapest one I saw was like 35 something, 35 to 50 US, which isn't bad. Considering if it is you want to continue after, even if we go back out to schools, we have already opened the door to blended learning. So if you have your own private lessons and you want to teach from home, and this is an excellent investment because you have your projector, and instead of having to type out anything or type out exercises or look for worksheets, you have your textbooks that you had from however long. You pull those up, right? And it will project it directly onto your screen. So it lessens the amount of pre-planning that you need to do, right? So this is an excellent piece of hardware. Now, I know some of you may be saying, we may be going back out to school soon enough. Yes. However, I'm still kind of thinking about, you know, those, you know, sometimes you may have like, I don't know, August camps or whatever. And I think a lot of parents are happy to have their kids in the safety of their homes or by a sitter or at work with them while they're doing their lessons, instead of running here, there, and everywhere to get to that lessons and whatever. So it's something to probably consider. And Black Friday sales went already anyway, but there's sales that come and go all the time, right? So this is something to consider as well. All right, so before we close, any questions? Any real questions that you would like to ask at this point?
I don't have a question, but I really appreciate this webinar. I have learned so much, and I'm going to look for the hardware tonight because I'm so excited by what I see. I can't wait to try out some of the things you mentioned here. It has been an awesome workshop, and I really appreciate you for extending your time and your talent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate those sentiments.
And I'd like to second that actually.
Thank you very